start, Ms. Bagley is going to be talking about digital workbooks and texts using Google Slides as kind of a workaround for not having an actual book. So we're very excited to have her. Thank you guys for all coming. And without further ado, all right, thank you.
So I was telling Courtney that this kind of sort of came as one of those sort of accidents. This is not an original idea. I'm sure some of you have probably seen some of these, but this came to me because we did not order any kind of vocabulary workbooks this year as part of our textbooks. Well, then everything happened and went down, and I love doing vocabulary, and I'm an English teacher at the high school. So I was just kind of, and then everything kind of all came together. I'm part of PLC that is the So We Learn, and being in there with Nate Ridgway, who's kind of a guru for all this. He's one of the ditch guys. Anyway, so roundabout to tell that I sort of came up with using this. Now, I had practice. This is not gonna like me, is it? I had practice in messing with slide setups. So I guess this is kind of a basic thing, but the first thing that you want to think about is you're going to kind of think outside the box with going into your slide setup, and that's just under the page setup, which I'll show you. But you're going to make it more of an 8.5 by 11. You totally don't have to do that for primary. You could totally go the other way, and and I do have some examples of that. Like my son's in first grade, I could see, I do like the idea of replicating a book in some ways. So, you guys are different subject areas. I'm English, I've got social studies background. I also used to be a librarian here. So I can see, all kinds of ideas. So I was like, well, okay, I still want to do this, but how can I do this digitally? And it wasn't even necessarily like because of like being green, which that's what I did the green to kind of remind me of. But if that is something, obviously we're trying to deal with less paper. I love me some paper. I love office supplies. I love everything about paper. But I knew that this year was going to have to be different. And I teach mostly seniors. So I kind of had, and I'm sure a lot of you did too, an inkling that we could be here and there and everywhere, and maybe not having to depend on bringing workbooks back and forth would be something. So this is what I was looking for. So in designing a project, I wanted to have something obviously that was engaging, creative, which I'll come back to that in a minute, because this has really scratched a creative itch for me that I'm really enjoying, like on my side. One of my seniors told me the other day that I didn't have to quite enjoy it so much that if I wanted to take a break, I could. In fact, I had him in class today. He's a big football player. I was like, oh, guess what I'm working on? Lesson 5. Also putting the words in context. So the examples I'm going to show you today are vocabulary. Obviously, that has far-reaching implications for a lot of subjects, but I'll also kind of jump outside. I've been saying jump outside the slide instead of the box, but jump outside that and kind of give you some other ideas. Obviously, this would work for any subject where you would have a notebook, a journal, any of those. And I know those could be far-reaching and as creative as I know you guys are. Okay, so I'm a professional stealer because I know that there are people out there that do things better than I do. That said, I'm also the type of person that likes to see all my choices in front of me and then change it for what works for me. So the two that I would give you, and I'm assuming we're going to share this out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be great.
So just to kind of save a little bit of time, but I will show you some of these, and you'll see their ideas incorporated into what I do. Slides Mania. If you've not heard of her, it's one lady. I don't know why she does this, but God bless her. She sends out, she's on Facebook, she's on Twitter, she has her own website, all free templates for you name it, as long as you credit her. She gets she gets a little spicy if somebody takes her template and then tries to sell it on Teachers Pay Teachers or something, which of course she should. And then Matt Miller, and I should have brought his book. I didn't, but he is the Ditch That textbook guy. And really it was from he and Nate Ridgway that I first kind of used their template for the vocab book. And then I've kind of branched out from there. So I'll come back to them in a minute. Okay, so one of the things I love about this is I'm not artistic, but I am artsy. And so, like, for example, this is my house, actual house during the winter a couple years ago. So one of the things so why not docs, right? Why not a doc? Because of slides being more, I feel like, art and design based, you can bring in a lot more graphical things. And if we know one thing about our kids these days is that they are very visual, and we like, multicolors, we like patterns, no matter what age they are. And part of it was, even if I could have, so the vocab, what could I have done? I could have gone out on the internet and I looked, trust me, I looked to find a PDF of just some vocab workbook that I could pull off. But then when I saw this and what happens, you get that, combustion of ideas. And I was like, but I could do this my way and also maybe, just maybe, make it fun. Of course, you never know if they're going to think it's fun or not. But here's just some other stuff that I thought of, and this slide's probably in the wrong place, but bear with me. I was telling her, Courtney, I've never presented this before, so I it was like trying to, get all my thoughts down. And on, election night last night, I started already, but then I was like, okay, I got to really finish this up. So anyway, the point is just about anything that you can think of that's a book, or that you would be a product of a book that you could have a kid do, you can use this. Because, you can do anything. You can put pictures as backgrounds, science journal. What do you teach?
Science.
So science.
Science.
Okay. Lots of science today, not you. So, I'm just thinking of anything, any pictures, diagrams. I had actually, you're going to love me, one of my vocab lessons, they had to do a scientific experiment, like a little journal, where they were actually using the vocab words instead. So the list that I'm using, so I did not create my own list. That was one thing I was like, there's lists out there. So for my seniors, there is a product that comes through American Heritage Dictionary that's called 100 Words Every high school graduate needs to know. So that's what I based for my seniors on. So I had the words. So then it was just, how creative do I want to try to be? Okay. Now, then I was like, okay, what am I going to put on the slides? I don't want to just replicate what a vocab book would look like, or not that I haven't done this on occasion, but taken a screenshot of a page and just slap it on top of the slide. Okay, not saying I haven't done that, but I wanted to pull in a lot of these sort of cool, I'm always a sucker for cool stuff. When, you see someone like Leslie Fisher or other people that are into gadgety type things, something cool that you can do. And I've kind of sort of filed all those things away in my mind over the years and wanted to use them, have used them on occasion, but this gives me a chance to use them kind of all in one place. So you want to use Bitmojis. This is a great example to do that. One of the slides, I don't know if I have this one on here, but one of them is, I call a deep dive, where they take a word and they take it through, obviously, its definition. They take it through its synonyms, antonyms, derivation, history. How do you use it? What's its connotation, the whole thing. And so, of course, I have this Bitmoji of me deep sea diving with my snorkel mask, and I think, don't discount using things like that draw their attention, because now all of a sudden, oh, that's, you wearing really weird big thumbs up things. I'll show you a second too. So thinking outside the slide for me also meant that I'm using this space out here because when I do the workbooks, I don't have the kids do the workbooks in presentation mode. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Some of these are just some others, and honestly, like I said, you are completely limited by your own imagination as to what kinds of activities you would want to do. Screenshots of anything, backgrounds of anything. This does take, I think, a little bit of maybe more than the average knowledge of Google Slides, but it's not anything difficult. I mean, maybe the one thing that I definitely learned from doing this is that sometimes you want to go ahead and lock your slide so that when they go to write on it, and our kids are using Cami, that they're not moving elements around. And there's a couple ways you can do that. Image annotation. So I've done this actually with pieces of art. I will go out and just Google a vocab word with the image search, and it might come up with like that word in context. And in doing this, like they've discovered artists that they didn't know about, and geographical pictures and editorial cartoons. Editorial cartoon last week. Hegemony was one of our words. All kinds of just different things visually. Caption this. So like this is one that was an idea that I took from Nate. So this is like, find a picture and then use the vocabulary word. And then within Google Slides, when you go up to the object, it has like the bubbles. So you could do like the thought bubbles, the speech bubbles. You could even I'm toying with the idea of doing like an actual framed up cartoon. I just haven't done that one yet. Shades of meaning, that's also from Nate. I love that one because what I do is I take an adjective, usually maybe a verb, and I put it on a sliding scale, like a Likert scale, but top to bottom. And I give them the word, and then they have to look it up in a thesaurus and find words that are like mean more in intensity or less in intensity. And I have little text boxes that I usually do shade a color and they are able to slide. So that kind of speaks to another part where there is a sense of interactivity where they can pick up things and move things around. I like the big filled arrows. A lot of times I'll do that and I'll write the name of the vocab word on the arrow, and then they slide the arrow. And usually I give them the arrow. Sometimes I even give them the arrow with the word typed in it. But I've always believed that the more you interact with vocab, the better you are. So a lot of times I make them go ahead and type it. Brainstorming. So you can go out with sticky notes. You can go out and get just, the Post-its that are, I don't mean go out and get like the store. I mean, go get a graphic of one. And you can then actually have them, same sort of thing. It's the same principle as if it's just a little text box, but it's a Post-it note. And they type on the Post-it note, and then they pick it up and I'll show you what I did with that. And then, there's more. Well, like here's one right here. Duh, I forgot I did that. So that's one. And I mean, it's just a little detail, and obviously I made it long. I mean, I know they come in all sizes, but I made it long. But if it, in my mind, if it makes them pay attention because it's got a big thumbtack up at the top, and that looks cool. Or I'll show you in a second, like I use notebook paper, which of course is really ironic because I'm giving them notebook paper on top of a slide in a virtual, but I don't care. They don't notice. And then of course we can get into all kinds of multimedia. So one of the lessons, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember, there's a song, it's called Bring Me to Life by Evanescence. It's an old song. 91 or something, or 2001, because a bunch of them were born right around then when we had it. And so our word of that week was evanescent. Now, sometimes I reach far, but that's okay. I love music. I'm into music. I'm a musician. So I pulled in that YouTube video, put the lyrics of the song, make sure it's okay, put the lyrics of the song, and then I had to analyze the song. And so now it's not only they're doing that, they remember what that word means, but they're also doing some poetry and, just kind of mixing it up. Okay. So, of course, if you're going to do a portfolio, this is an option of the speckle, because why not? And I stripped this one out. I'm not going to use any of the real students, but I've even told them they can put stickers so they can go out and they can decorate these. I mean, in principle, it's exactly the same. I do attach these in Google Classroom so they can turn them in, and and who wants to, do that anymore, especially with, trying to be no touch. I'm not saying it's still not a lot of work, but it is possible. Okay, so this is one of the first, I'm just going to keep it real. This was one of the first ones I did this year. And I'm going to tell you it's basic, okay? But we were reading this story from our textbook, and it had these five vocab words. And again, here's my, my hair's a little longer now, but and it happened to be about the golden age of TV, which, that was perfect. And who doesn't have fun looking for just the right emoji? And so rather than, and I think I just sent this out as a worksheet. It wasn't actually, so you could do a single slide like this. And they just had to define it and then use it. You could do this as, any kind of a little, brainstorming activity, a bell ringer, whatever. So that's basic. I know it is. Try not to be impressed. Okay. This one actually, again, like I said, I've done screenshots onto a slide. So one of our words last week, I teach juniors too. It was one of the two, was inferences. And I found this, and it was perfect because they could read this paragraph. It was juniors, because I remember one of them asking me about it. So one of them, can't remember if it's this one, there's another one, but it was about this kid who was sitting there, and they made all these, like, there were whirring noises, there were nerves, all this stuff. Well, it turns out the kid was at the dentist getting braces, and they had to try to figure it out from the situation. But that was just because the word was inference. I kind of feel like I might know what an inference is now. I will tell you too, vocab quiz scores, I hoped, but they are through the roof. And I typically do, for at least for this, and again, this is my setting, but I typically do about 10 pages. But honestly, I'm having so much fun doing them. I did wanted posters a couple weeks ago. One of the words was gerrymander. And I just wait and see what the words are, and then just kind of go nuts with it. Okay. Last week we also had, this was a girl who's a junior, and the word was guru. And so you can see where I borrowed my own idea from the very first one I got that I did that kind of stunk. But here's another thing too. I used to love to make copies on colored paper, because I swear it makes a difference. Now, maybe if it's that neon, Astro Bright stuff, not so much always, but even to do. And so, like, don't leave your slides blank. You don't want to make them necessarily like too crazy busy, but and these are just, in fact, by the way, if you want to do a fake Instagram, which is another one that's on my list to do, this rounded square is really good to do that. You could actually do like a fake Instagram wall, where they could put in their whatever pictures it would be. And I just gave them the starters. So it was, I consider myself this. How did I learn how to do this? Some interesting facts about it, something people may not know, and if I was going to teach someone else. And I don't know, I think it's fun. It's fun for me to read them too. Okay, so here's some comics. And for the comics, okay, I've got more of it. So what I'll show you, but what I will wind up doing is, this is where I will have those arrows or even those bursts out to the side, and they'll slide them to the right word. This is another, let me put this in. Oh, here we go. Okay. I was going to say, I'm showing this in Present, which is dumb because that's not what I do. Okay. So here they are. So then they would just, and this screen already doesn't like me. I've been informed. But they would just slide it. So they just slide it next to, and then they just see it this way. This is there we go. This is I made this myself, and I'll provide you the link. But this is, and you could just look up like fake Twitter. So what I did is I made up, this would be cool for scientists, because I happen to have in this particular one I had Melville. This one I had, is it Archimedes? I think it's Archimedes. It's the like water displacement guy. This guy did something with chromosomal parts. Anyway, so what I did is I created, and these were the answers. So what they had to do for the answer was just do a hashtag and then use the vocab word. And they have a list. The very like second slide is the list of the vocab words. So this is just a fake Twitter. So like this one, I put the science, and you can do the verified check and everything. And you can name, at whatever. Eureka, I got into my bathtub and figured out water displacement. So they then had to figure out what, like last week, one of my words was hypotenuse, and I got Tony Bacon and Rick Jesh and Kyle Jones. And I did social studies, and I got you, and I got 10, and they gave me some questions, and then I figured out how to. So that's kind of fun to involve. Although I will tell you, like some of the math, one of my kids said to me, "This is not math class. This is English. What is happening?" Like that was his comment. So that threw him. But that's a Twitter one, and I've loved that one for a while, and I never really knew how to integrate that. This is another one that I like. This is, and the link is on this one. This makes a little fake above the fold like headline. So the instruction was go to this site, create a newspaper clipping, and in that clipping, correctly use at least 2 vocab words from this week's lesson. And then when you're done, paste the clipping on the slide. So they go to the site, do it, and then it's just a copy paste. So it's like, and I'm sure we've all gone to trainings where you're like, oh, that's really cool and fun, but like, how can I ever really integrate that? And for me, this has just been kind of after all this time, a fun way to put that together. This one's a pretty new one. These letter boards are popular. So this is a virtual letter board. And so what they had to do, now again, I reach sometimes, but the vocab word was epiphany. And they had to come up with 3 different epiphanies that they feel like they've had in the last, whatever I said, 5 years. These are seniors, so, they're all thoughtful. And so anyway, so that's a separate site, and then they come back. And so those were his 3. Here's what I wound up doing with hegemony. So they had this political cartoon, and then they had to answer some inferences. And this was just a little format that I kind of stole from somewhere that I saw, but I like the containment of it. There's something about that I think that's really appealing. If you're like somebody that likes to use bullet points, I think kids really respond to that as well, and maybe it's a little bit less overwhelming. A similar vein on this, I was super proud of myself because I did this with the tree, and I thought it was cool. I just cropped the tree and cut it in half, but I followed the shape. I'm an old yearbook girl. So for me, like I said, kind of that creativity, I can't draw, but kind of, that layout was kind of fun. And that word was equinox. And it just so happened that the equinox was that week. It's weird how that worked out. A couple more. Here's that shades of meaning that I was talking about earlier. So all they have to do is look up fatuous, and then this is not going to be my friend. Okay. And then say they type something on it, and okay, well, that is less. So there, I'm going to slide it on that scale. And I mean, that's really simple, but they seem to like that and do pretty well on it. Just a couple more. So this one is all about word derivations. There's those fat arrows that I was talking about. Well, it slides. So you type the word and then slide it to the one, and I don't ever care which side it is. And then last week, I think this was a juniors, I did not embed these. I think I couldn't embed them. That was the problem. I don't know if you guys have never gone to the Presidential Library in Springfield for Lincoln. It's totally worth it. But I love the idea of holograms, and a lot of people are coming out with holograms, dead famous people in their holograms. But these were just 2 videos. So obviously you can link to anything. And then I asked him kind of ethically, like, what did you think about that? Like, is it cool to have like standing next to President Lincoln? And then here's that Evanescence video that I was talking about. There we go. So, it's not beautiful. I didn't spend a lot of time on the slide to like make it super pretty, but so after that, and I just extrapolated from different ones to put in here. But so the next slide then was the lyrics, and then they had some questions. So I'll spend like 3 slides on that one word. Just a couple more. This is kind of off of that, believe it or not, with these vocab words, I can find those vocab words used in famous quotes by other people. So I'll just go out and Google and find those. And then again, they're just writing them in, and, I find stupid versions of myself. 1 week so this kind of goes more to you, Ashton, I guess. One of the words was euro. So I was like, so, I mean, for me, that's like a lot, that brings a lot of ideas, of what, so, I don't know the odds of have any of them seen a euro? Have they held a euro? Do they know what it is? So again, shades of that very first one I did with the individual boxes. Instead, I brought in some graphics. They had to answer these questions. Again, using this, there's no rule that says you can't go out in the margins if you're going to just do it in, the slide sorter view. And then I went ahead and embedded the little video right there, which they can watch. And I mean, I would never do more than like a 2 or 3 minute little clip. I mean, I'm not asking them to watch a history of the euro or whatever. And then this is my favorite because I'm a big dork and I think this is cool. I always loved when I was a kid that my mom would put stuff on the refrigerator. So I went out and I figured out and found an old time refrigerator that looked like my grandma's. And I had to flip it because, of course, when I found it, it was the other way. So what they do, and they have to do this is part of the assignment, whether it's a mnemonic device, just a shortened definition, whatever, but then they write on that and then they slide it over and then it goes, how do I get out of there? I went out. There. And then it goes and they'll have them plastered all over the fridge. And yes, it is hot pink because it's my fridge. And then the only thing left that I had were just some other, just ideas. Obviously, I have seen full, and I've got links for you here. And I did put some graph paper in the back because that's another option. Not a math person, but that's another option. You can put any kind of background for equations or whatever you would want to graph. But all the links that I mentioned are here. Ashton, you might enjoy this one. And I think this one came off of Nate's. He actually did a whole book. I mean, I could see student authoring. This could take student authoring. And you can, in any of these, I'm not sure why you would want to, at least not print, but you can take these and download them as PDFs. So if now with mine, it's instructional, particularly because I have all that stuff in the margins, maybe not so much. But you wouldn't have to do that. And it really kind of turns the whole, having a kid write a book, that sort of thing. I mean, it sort of turns it on its ear. And you've got, and you have all that graphic power behind it. I mean, that's what's so much better about it in general than with docs, because it just comes, imbued with all of that graphic goodness behind it. And then last but not least is I gave you a blank piece of paper because that's where we all start, right? So, and this is actually how I have my senior journal that we're using as like a senior portfolio for this year.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks. Questions? Anything I know it's hard because we're such different subjects, but I think especially too, and I don't know if it's just because of, COVID and everything, but this has been, I don't want to say therapeutic, that sounds overly dramatic. In a way, kind of. I really have enjoyed this creative, and when I can see what words I'm going to use for the next week. And obviously you could, pick what your chapter vocab or whatever, or completely take it off in a different direction. So there's and I think this right here, this link in the middle, ditch that textbook, 20 activities to fill them is how it ends. That's where I started as far as activities, because anybody can do a blank slide and then you're like, what do I put on that thing? So that at least gave me a start, and then I kind of jumped off from there. One of my senior boys, big old football player, the other day said, how long do those take you to make? And I was like, well, 2-3 days, 4 days. He's like, you need to take a little bit less time. You don't need to take so much time doing those. So if I can ever help, if you have an idea and you just want to shoot it around with somebody and, let me know. I'm not an expert, but and here's the horizontal, by the way. So like if you ever wanted to do, it's almost like the Shutterfly kind of thing, making your book, a book for your child. If you ever wanted to tell a story, I mean, this, I think it does give me a preview. Yeah. So at least you can see like that, and it does that, out that way. So.
Mary, how often do you grade these? Since it is weekly vocab, do you grade it week by week?
Okay, so I do them every other week, and they don't complain. Just because there's the sheer volume of them coming in, and sometimes I'll be selective in what slides I'm really looking at. And then, but like I said, I mean, into God, that their scores are fantastic.
So after they do a part of the digital notebook, then do they have a vocab quiz?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's pretty traditional, although I'll figure out how to turn that on the tier 2 probably. But, I feel, I'm having fun. It's not what it's all about, right? So, and hopefully they are. I think that they are, and, we'll just see. And it's certainly been a way to not collect in, well, I think I started out with 136 students this year. Of course, I'm not that many now, but that would have been a lot. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't honestly know. I think it was more of a rote thing. I don't really know that they were, I love notebooks. I love those workbooks, but I don't think maybe a lot of them were really learning a lot, And the cool thing about, using the terms that I am is that so many of them are academic vocabulary for other classes, which is why last week, I think I reached out. We had in speech
And gerrymandering.
And I was like, let's see what, and I just love to throw my kids off guard too. So when the other teachers stepped in, and then Mr. Jones being our principal now, and he was a math teacher here. So I was like, hey, can you give me a hypotenuse problem? He did. So, well, thank you.
What's
Thanks for
your
having me.
fastest trick for getting it into the master? What is the route you take? Because there's different ways you can lock it, or you can, because you create this wonderful thing, and then you don't want them to sit there and play with all this.
It's fast and dirty, if that's okay, is to do a screenshot of the slide prior to whatever it is they're going to write on.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fastest. You could always do a basic layout template that you save for yourself and then recreate, add into. I don't know. Everybody kind of has their own methodology. I kind of tend to just take the last one I did and make a copy off of that, and then just switch it around. Because I'm doing 2, because I have juniors too. I just didn't. I did a couple of slides of the juniors, but yeah, the screenshot.
So I know there's
It's not
different
pretty.
ways, and everyone has their own way. I'm just wondering what we
Yeah,
do.
that's in fact this last slide is actually a screenshot. So that start here is not really there. So then what you would have to do See, it will automatically throw that text box up on top of that. And the only ones I've ever had problems with as far as the elements locked or not locked are when they're sliding the arrows. I probably should have mentioned that. So one of the things I do, I can't not do that because that's the point of them doing it, but I will go in and click on it and do an order. So you want to click on, so say it's one of those arrows. If I don't do the order and like bring it to front, then what happens is it slides behind the slide. And so, and those were a couple, I made some rookie mistakes doing that. So now, and I too think, you know, you want to make sure as best as you can before you, because I do the share out where everybody gets their own copy. So just make sure it's what you want it to be. I mean, it's not like you can't change it, but I try to get it exactly what I want it to be before I send it out. But yeah.
Do you
And
just,
go ahead.
just keep adding to your slides underneath, or do you create new
No, I do
slides
new.
every week when you do your vocab?
Like I said, I make a copy because I feel like that way I'm still recording this. Like I'm cheating off myself.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? I'm like plagiarizing off myself to get the format because like the first page. I don't think I have this up. Okay, but like I didn't show all this, but like this is so like this is an actual kids, but like say this was my vocab and every week I wanted this page on it that has the due dates and some just prompt ideas. So I could either go from scratch, copy that one slide, bring it in, or I copy the whole thing and then just X out what I don't want and add as I go. To me, it's like, this is a mental thing, I guess. But it's not as overwhelming to me, even if it's my own work. If I'm like, well, if I run out of ideas and I have to just kind of do a remix on something I did last week, then that's okay. You know, they won't, or I can just mix it up or change the background or put in a, you know, picture off the school website that came up or, you know,
yeah.
And they won't know the difference. I mean, really, they haven't been like, you know, you've used that one thing like several times now. And then if I'm somewhere and I see something that's, you know, a good idea or something that I could, I was on Twitter yesterday. This doesn't really appeal to this, but I did it in classroom where somebody said, just to try to, you know, bring some levity to everything going on. If you could only watch one movie for the rest of your life over and over again, what would it be? Well, I was like, throw that up on Google Classroom as a question. And, you know, I think we're all like that. You know, we're all looking for things. And I think doing something like this gives you kind of a vehicle to maybe do some of the creative things and put them in there that maybe, and because you're not constrained by paper, you can do multimedia, you can do, you know, really about anything. The only thing I haven't really done is, you know, put maybe part of the lesson in their hands, which is something that I want to do, or, you know, they maybe design something. So that's kind of, I'm learning as I go, but having fun with it. So.
Great.
All
thank
right.
you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime. I can see you guys have been doing some standards up here on Post-its.